everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, Making a Difference in Mental Health. I am your host, Danielle Young, and I have my co-host here with me. Hey, Wendy, how you doing?
Hey, Danielle, how are you? Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great day today.
Yes, absolutely. And Wendy, we are so honored to have our CEO, Vera Kurdian, here to discuss self-care with us today.
Good morning, Miss Kurdian, or is it now Dr. Kurdian? Tell us the good news.
Yeah.
So I have been in a leadership doctoral program for the last 3 years, and I'm very happy to announce that yesterday I was privileged enough to be granted the title of doctor. So moving forward, I am Dr. Vera Kurdian. But of course, for my fantastic staff, it is always going to be Vera.
Okay,
that is just dynamite, and congratulations to you for all your hard work in leading this company. So Vera, tell us your journey. How did you get started at ABH?
It's actually quite a very interesting and a fulfilling journey. I actually started with ABH as a part-time clinical supervisor. That was my role. I had worked for the government before that, and I needed to diversify my experience. And then the opportunity of supervising clinicians came, and I took it. And along the way, I did that for about a year and a half too. And in 2015, when they opened up the Frederick office, they wanted me to lead the office. So I began leading the office. And a year and a half later, my predecessor had a baby and she took time off, and then she didn't come back. So I became the interim program director. I did that for a little bit. And then when the position of the CEO opened, I applied, and I was fortunate enough to get it. So that was in 2018. So I've had the privilege and the honor of leading this organization since 2018 to where we are today, and hopefully many more years in the future.
Fantastic. So today we're talking about self-care, and as we said, we're very honored to have you. You had space for us today, so we really appreciate you being on our podcast today. We really are curious to know, how does self-care play a part in the company's culture?
Sure. Thank you for that question. That actually is an extremely important question throughout the years, but more so now than any other time. As we all know, that the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, have been challenging times for every single individual, starting with the COVID-19, which really threw chaos into the world, and for everyone, including our company, our clients, our patients, our wonderful staff. And of course, if that was not enough, then shortly after that, we had the increased injustice towards our wonderful Black community. And then now it continues with injustices towards the Asian and all other minority groups, which is something that it has to be on the forefront of everything that we do. And along with that comes that self-care, because self-care is something that we each have to be able to operationalize it by deciding what that means to individual one of us. What is a self-care for me is going to be different than self-care to everyone else. But I think as an organization, my motto has always been, if you have happy staff, you have happy organizations. If you want productive organizations, you have to be able to have productive staff. And how do we do that? We do that by making sure that we promote self-care internally. And what does that mean, right? You pull up an article, and there's 150 different articles that talks about self-care. Self-care is listening to your staff. Self-care is paying attention to what they need and doing what you can as a leader to be able to address them. Hearing people's challenges and making an effort into changing that, that's a part of self-care. Because when I look at the definition of self-care is finding a balance between mental, emotional, and physical. And if I am not being heard, when in my place of employment, automatically I'm not feeling good. And when I'm not feeling good, my emotional state is not going to feel good. It's going to impact my psychological state, and it's also going to impact my physical health and my ability to function. So self-care has many arms. And as an organization, the first one is listen to your staff. Support your staff in the best way that you can. You might not be able to do every single thing, but if your staff know that you're making an effort into making it better for them, that's self-care. Allowing them to an environment of learning. We all make mistakes. Sometimes we make grave mistakes, but looking at those mistakes and saying, how can we own this and how can we move forward into making sure that the employee is feeling supported? That's two. Allowing people to have time off, telling people, take time off, take care of yourself, take care of your family, be able to spend time with your loved ones within the day. I mean, if there's one thing that we've learned during this pandemic, we know that it's been very difficult for people to transition from a work day to a home day.
Right.
So we would go to work, we get in a car, we get ourselves in a mindset that we are going to work. But at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever that may be, you turn off your computer, you get your bag, you get in the car, you've got that time to go home, to be able to de-stress. So for me, organizational self-care has to be part of our daily life. So to all of my fantastic clinicians who are doing telehealth, I'm going to say to them, build it within your day. After a session or two, turn off your computer, take your dog on a walk, go take a walk on a beautiful day, listen to something that makes you feel good, to get re-energized and be able to do this very difficult work that we do.
Nice. Danielle, what do you think about that?
I think it's wonderful. Vera touched on something that's very important, building self-care into your day. And I just have to give just a little bit of a personal story. When I first started at ABH, Vera was actually my supervisor. And one thing that I can say is true, and it was a short period of time, but one thing that I can say is true, that is the continued streamline is to build self-care into your day. I remember Vera telling me that when I first began to learn how to organize your day, but at the end of the day, take care of myself. So it still rings true today.
Absolutely. And I like the part, like, take time off. And so Vera has let me take time off. I'm about to hit the road for my vacation, some relaxation and de-stressing. So quite important to message that to your staff.
Now, Vera, you already touched a little bit on what self-care means to you, even as a CEO, and some of your employees and some of us here at the agency. Now, can you also speak to our audience and even some of our clinicians here at ABH about the importance of work-life balance?
Absolutely. What we do day in and day out is different than any other field. Our clinicians, the field that we are in, people are unpacking their troubles, their challenges, their experiences onto our clinicians who have their own lives, who have their own struggles, who have their own children and challenges. And what we do is not just about, how others feel, but it also how it makes us feel. So I think making sure that when you're going through your day and people are unpacking is, number one, to be able to address those concerns, but compartmentalize it and not to internalize it, because that's going to impact what you do after work. So working hard is, everybody works hard, but finding that balance. And what do I mean by that? None of us could go to a spa every single day of it. So when you hear people say, go to the spa, go on vacation, those are all great, wonderful things. But we know that most of us, we go on vacation a couple times a year. We go to the spa on special occasions. But work-life balance is to build it within your day, making sure that you do what you can, the best that you can, while taking care of yourself. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be very good in helping other people. The work-life balance and self-care starts with you being in an emotional state where you feel good about yourself. And that means you slept well, you had a healthy diet, you've included some exercise activities, some pleasure during the day, even if it is 5 minutes a day. Again, a lot of times people say, I don't have time for exercise. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. But exercise doesn't mean I have to go to a gym. Exercise can mean while I'm sitting at my desk, right? I could have a dumbbell or something, right? And as I'm, listening to my clients, I will be able to do that. It's not going to take away, but it's it's allowing us to be who we are and paying attention to our needs for us to be able to help others. So that work-life balance, each one has to have to create it for themselves. It's not scripted. I can't say 9 to 10 do this, 11 to 12 do that.
Right.
You're going to have to find your own balance in your own life and what makes sense to you.
Vera, so juggling all the demands that you have as a CEO, I can imagine is just incredible. And so thank you for what you just said about finding the work-life balance and what works for you. Some of the tips that you gave us in the audience are very helpful. How do you do self-care? How do you, during your day, when everyone's coming for you and asking you questions and solving problems, how do you find that balance?
Well, to be honest with you, part of my work-life balance is that when I am listening to my staff and then I'm able to contribute even 1% of improving their day, to me, that's my self-care. Because my role here is to take care of people. My role is I take care of my people and my staff take care of the community's needs. So for me, self-care is when I have an employee leave my office with a smile on their face, because I feel that I fulfilled what I needed to do. That gives me joy. That gives me pleasure. That gives me that, fulfillment that I was able to make that difference. I'm no longer in direct care, right? I used to be in direct care. I no longer provide direct care. My direct care is with my staff. And so for me, my self-care is making sure that my staff have 1% less of a burden that I contributed to. That's my work day. Now, I also do lots of things for myself. I love to travel. I love to learn new things. I am a learner of new things. And I take joy in learning things that I don't know. I'll give you anecdotal. I'm not going to give my age, but I am what I am. But at a certain age in my life, I wanted to learn the piano. That was something so important for me. So about 3 years ago, I dedicated my Thursday nights to playing the piano. So
wonderful.
Every Thursday, everybody knows, wherever I am, at 6:45, I will be home waiting for my teacher so that I can learn my piano. That's my self-care. Now, I'm not very good, and I'm still learning. But when I sit in front of that piano and I play a tune or not, my entire day, my blood pressure goes down. I feel so good. I love to exercise. I don't get to do it very often. So every opportunity I get, I go on a walk. I go on long walks. I love doing that. I love traveling, minus COVID, of course. I cannot wait for the world to return so we can all travel. I love spending time with my friends, my loved ones, hanging out, having an adult beverage and talking and laughing and supporting one another. That's my self-care.
And Vera, we have talked about this. This is the month of self-care. So all of our guests, we've kind of gotten all the technical things of what you do for self-care from the mental health and the emotional health perspective. But then there are those indulgences. And so just to kind of recap, I know I love all things like beautification and creativity. And I also wanted to touch on really quickly some things that you mentioned about self-care, of course, from the agency-wide perspective, and then also at an individual level of just diet and exercise. And we've already had our movement specialist, Mr. Tracy Peel, who came on our last episode and talked just about that. And then we also had our very own medical director, Dr. Ba, who talked about self-care from a mental health perspective and also mentioned these things. And then Wendy has also talked about some of her self-care things. Wendy, what are your thoughts on self-care?
Well, as I shared earlier, spending time with my friends, hanging out, talking, as Vera alluded to, adult beverages is always a win for me. And, I shared your love of beautification. I love a mani, I love a pedicure. And also for me, I love dogs. So what really calms me at the end of the day is just sitting down, petting my dog, because Mr. Murphy's a lap dog. And so I just can find my stress just leaving my body when I do that. And we go on long walks with the dog as well. So I think I touch on everybody's tips that they like to do for self-care.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen Mr. Murphy. He's so cute.
Thank you. I know.
I've had the pleasure of seeing Murphy. And, Vera, we do want to thank you again for coming. And, my question that it was like a burning question, and you've kind of answered it already. I'm like, how does Vera juggle it all? And you're able to kind of just tell us that you love to travel. I am definitely a proponent of traveling as well. I love to travel too. I can't wait till things open up a little bit more and it becomes safe. But I also love the fact that you said, learn something new, put something into your regimen that, kind of takes you out of your comfort zone, but it's new. It's a conversation piece. I would have never known that you even have time for piano lessons.
Thursday nights, it doesn't matter. Wherever I am, 6:45, I am home. Even during my dissertation, and as stressful as that was, prepping for my defense, my Thursday, that was something that was not negotiable. I knew I needed to do that, and I needed that.
That is so inspiring for people to just, hold on to that one thing that's near and dear to their heart. And as you said earlier, schedule it in, make it a priority, get it done, do it. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think the other thing which is really important, and people always ask me about my energy. Where do you get all this energy?
Yes, that's the question of the day.
Yeah. All this energy. I think you find your passion, whatever that may be. And when you find your passion, the work that you do is not work. It's your passion. It's who you are. It is not a chore. It is not a burden. My position here at ABH, I feel it is my passion. Sure, we all need a paycheck. Of course, we all need to make a living. But you can make a living anywhere. But if you find that position, that role, that is your passion, your stress level is not going to be the same, because you're not going to get burnt out. That's the other thing, right? In our field, burnout is real. That's why you have to include all of the things that we've talked about, because the day you feel the work becomes work and it doesn't become a passion, it means that you have to reassess. You have to take a look at it. What else is going on in my life? Because that's when burnout happens, right? When you lose that passion, when you feel that the work that you do does not make an impact anymore. So my best advice to my staff, to anybody who might be listening to this, is find your passion. And when you find your passion, every single day is going to feel amazing. Some more than others. But every day you're going to be able to get up in the morning and say to you, yesterday I wasn't as passionate as today, but today I'm going to be more passionate. And I think if we can do that in the field of mental health and take care of ourselves, we will see a whole lot less burnout and fatigue and compassion fatigue.
Amen. That is so true.
Well, Vera, we just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come on the podcast and really just encourage our listeners and encourage other clinicians here at ABH to talk about self-care and to really go through. I'm just going to summarize a couple of things that we've heard today for our listeners. This has been a very good interview of just gems, dropping gems everywhere. But the one thing or a couple of things that I took from this is that when it comes to self-care, when it comes to your workday, learn how to compartmentalize and not internalize. Find the balance in your day, and that self-care looks different for everyone. So sometimes it may be the spa, sometimes it may be a walk, sometimes it may be petting your pet, sometimes it may be, just beautification. But whatever you do, find the balance. That's what I'm hearing today. Hopefully you heard the same thing. And then also when it comes to our special guest, if you wanted to know if it was the burning question, what does she do for self-care? From an agency-wide perspective, it seems very like part of your love language is to serve or to make sure that those who are under you or those who are following you are fulfilled and they have what they need and you're able to be there. You're able to be open and ready to hear and to show the compassion of your employees. But also on the other side of that, you love to travel and you're playing the piano and you love to take walks. And these are things that we just needed to know, that we love to hear. And it kind of normalizes it for all of us, everyone from the intern all the way up to the CEO. So we thank you so much for just coming. You also talked about just setting boundaries and just reassessing things. And at the end of the day, if your work doesn't feel too much of a burden, or if it's not heavy, then it is your life's passion. And so, Vera, we thank you so much. Wendy, before we go, do you have any last thoughts or final thoughts for Vera?
Vera, thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast, taking time out of your busy schedule. I think for me, what's most inspiring is just to hear you talk about the passion of the work, and how much you care about your staff and how important that is for your self-care. And I think for the audience listening, that's key. Find your passion. Don't be fearful. Find something that you love to do and go do it. And I think that's a great message for everybody.
And I also want to thank you for inviting me to this podcast. I'm so privileged. I'm so honored to be a guest on your podcast. But thank you for allowing me to talk. But my last thoughts are going to be, your staff of everything. I will not be here without my staff. The kudos goes to the staff. I have amazing staff, supportive staff, wonderful staff. And that's what it comes down to. Again, successful organizations are nothing but happy employees, productive employees that come, that they find their passion while they are serving our community and working for the organization. We are very privileged to have that opportunity.
And thank you for your leadership, Dr. Vera Kurdian.
Yes, yay!
I'm going to take that. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. This was so exciting. I was looking so forward to this interview here. So, Wendy, can you let us know what we have coming up to round out this series, and what do we have coming up for our next theme?
Sure, Danielle. So it's you and I having a conversation to round out the series on self-care. We'll highlight all the important things that our guests have shared with us to convey to the audience, and hopefully they'll walk away with some tips and some rejuvenation about what they can do in regards to self-care. I'm excited for August because we're going to tackle a tough conversations around the pandemic and education and how it's impacted our school-age clients here at ABH. So we have wonderful guests coming up to have these conversations.
Excellent. So we look forward to that. We look forward to those conversations in August. But we want to say again, thank you, Dr. Vera Kurdian, for being our special guest today. I am your host, Danielle Young, with my co-host, Wendy Grier. This is ABH's Mental Health Podcast, making a difference in mental health, where we're striving to make a difference in mental health. We will see you next time.